Welcome back for a new collections video. This time we're looking at my Nintendo handheld collection. It's not super big or impressive, but I try to go with quality over quantity. First up, we're looking at a couple of GBA games I have, also DS and then 3DS. So with that said, first up, sadly don't have the case or anything, but at least does have the booklet. And that is a Midway Greatest Arcade Hits collection, which included a total of 4 classic games. So if you have a GBA and you like playing old school arcade classics, this is a pretty cool one to have. Also, this another one of the Midway museums, which of course by now I am a big fan, always have been a big fan of this. In this set, as you can see, you get 4 classics. I mean, you got Miss PacMan, which is one of the things that makes this collection great. Of course, Galaga, Dig Dug, then one of the classic racing games at the time, though. For me, what makes this collection great is the fact it does have Miss PacMan in it. And the other one I have is, of course, Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, the original version of the game, before it got a PS2 version. But with that said, I also have 2 loose games. Now these are the big ones of the few GBAs I have. First up is Pokemon Fire Red, and the only other one I have is Pokemon Emerald, which is definitely probably 2 of the big deal ones that I have in my collection. Keep in mind, I got these back years ago for like 20 bucks a piece. Now, it's absurd what they're going for. Okay, next up onto the DS. First up we have Sonic Classics Collection, which is a great little compilation, which includes Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic 2, Sonic 3, and Sonic and Knuckles, but separately instead together Sonic 3 and Knuckles like you can do with the Genesis, which is kind of unfortunate, but still you do get 4 all-time classic 2D art Sonic games, and you can play on the DS, which is awesome, in my opinion. Also, of course, another Namco museum, because, of course. Where with this one, you get quite a few games, as you can see. I mean, you got Pac-Man, you got Pac-Man Verse, you got Galaxian, you got Galaga, Mappy, Dig Dug 2, and others. Definitely, like I've said, if you're a big fan, it's great. Also, a great way to play the original classic Super Mario 64 is the DS version, as this version of the game does have extra features and allows you to play with other characters other than Mario. Like as you see on the cover, you can also play with Wario, Yoshi, and my personal favorite, Luigi, because of his little super high jump spin can basically break the game, and you can get to sections you shouldn't be able to get to early on. So yeah, it's kind of cheating, but I don't care. That's one of the things, though, I like about. Specifically, I personally prefer this version over the N64 version. But that's just me. Next up, PacMan World 3, which is a superb game. I do have this on another platform, which is why this one is actually still factory sealed copy. Now, PacMan World Series is a series I have a serious nostalgia and fondness for, more than probably some other people out there. Now, personally, I have the most nostalgia for the first game. Second game is the one most people like. Third game, I'm kind of 50-50 with, personally, but I still enjoy it. Also, if you're a big Square Enix fan, there's some actually solid less well-known Final Fantasy games on the DS. Probably my personal favorite is this one, Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles Ring of Fates. I love the cover art with like the stained glass window look and everything. And if you are a fan of like Crystal Chronicles on the GameCube and stuff, you might enjoy this. Even if you don't like it, you might still enjoy it. As I actually think this game is a little bit easier when it comes down to it, is a little bit easier to approach than the regular GameCube game. Also, of course, can't overlook the greatness of the Kingdom Hearts games, with, of course, Recoded and 358/2 days, or over 2 days, however you want to say the name. But for me, I will always have a special fondness for these games personally. Always will. Specifically, this one I have a real fondness for as a big fan of Roxas' character. Now, quickly, couple of loose games after the last one I have complete in box, which is probably the pride and joy of my what DS games I have for the most part at least complete, with Golden Sun Dark Dawn, which is a great game. It has some really solid love, the puzzles in the game and everything. This is arguably probably my favorite, well, original RPG for the DS is probably my personal favorite one. At least of exclusives, that is. In general, the Golden Sun series doesn't get enough credit for what it deserves. Also, on the loose side of things, I have, first up, an interesting Chibi Robo game. Now, fun fact, this game was exclusively only available at Walmart, believe it or not. Chibi Robo Park Patrol. Now, personally, I would love to get my hands on the regular Chibi Robo, but the price for it for GameCube is absurd. Also, awesome game is the classic The World Ends With You, which is something I personally recommend to everyone out there to check out. And easily the crowning jewel for me personally is the port of Chrono Trigger. That's the one that really does it for me. As basically any port of this, it's not the easiest to come by, especially in the price range. But with that said, now we'll get ready to start with the 3DS. And keep in mind, this is strictly my physical games. I have, like, probably about 12 digital games as well, unlike the 3DS. So with that said, first up, let's look at the only two 3DS games that I have that are loose. First up is Pokemon Y, which is one of my personal favorite Pokemon games. I'm not as big into Pokemon as I once was, but Y of the 3DS era, it's easily my favorite. Also, loose copy of Pokemon Moon, which is actually a pretty solid game. I still have yet to actually play Ultra Moon, but these are definitely good games. If you get a chance, really give Pokemon Y a shot. But with that said, we have of less good games, I would say, in quality overall. One of the weaker games on the 3DS, at least in my collection, is Sonic Lost World. Still an interesting Sonic game for what it is, personal opinion though. But it's definitely different, but at least it's not as glitchy as the Wii U Lost World game was. Also, of games I have a little fondness for is one Final Fantasy Explorers. It's an interesting game. It was one of the first 3DS games I actually owned in my collection. So, it does have a bit of a special place for me personally. It does kind of remind me a little bit of like Final Fantasy World. And this game is still relatively affordable no matter what. Personally, I also like the cover art. Also, probably one of the more despised games in my collection, especially from Scott the Was. Yeah, I know, Scott, I know, you consider this one of the dark age of Nintendo. Chibi Robo Ziplash. It's not a great Chibi Robo game, but it's not overall one of the worst platformers I've played, not by a long shot. I guess because the Chibi Robo name and the fact, like, Scott, for instance, is a uber Chibi Robo fanboy. Me, I'm not, so maybe that's why this game doesn't bother me as much as other people. But with that said, I mean, I got this game like brand new for like $4, so I mean, I'm not gonna complain. I got it for a very reasonable price. Next up, probably one of the coolest collections or compilations in my collection is this, the Sega 3D Classics Collection, as it does from the ground up 3D effect like remakes of a bunch of the Sega old-time classics. I mean, you're talking about Puyo Puyo 2, Sonic the Hedgehog, Altered Beast, as well as many others. I mean, this is a pretty cool collection if you ask me. Also with Thunderblade being an awesome old school game as well. Next up, easily one of my personal favorite Mario games, especially on handhelds. This is definitely one of my all-time favorites. And I like its classic, but I actually think this game honestly is perfect for the 3DS, in my personal opinion. I love this game, and I always will. And the fact when I found this, I found it on clearance at Walmart. I really lucked out on that one. But this game has given me quite a few hours of fun platformer gameplay, and I highly recommend to anyone who has a chance to play, give New Super Mario Bros. 2 a shot. It is a solid overall Mario game. Also, if you like RPGs classic style, you can't go wrong with Bravely Second, which, funny enough, I also found on clearance at Walmart. But this is a great game if you like old school, like Square, or rather old school Final Fantasy games. You're gonna love this, just like the original Bravely Default. Bravely Second is honestly a great game overall, and you can tell definitely some of the artistic style definitely kind of reminds of Kingdom Hearts a lot to me anyways. Kind of reminds me a little bit like Roxas, just a tad. Or Ventus, whichever. Also, of the more interesting experiences you could play was this game called Spirit Camera, The Curse Memory, which was sort of a side game from the Fatal Frame series. It's definitely interesting. Now, sadly, you can't really play the game unless it comes with the special booklet, as it shows on the back here. It's definitely an interesting experience with the camera and stuff. And good jump scares. You can look around your apartment or house with it, and then stuff all of a sudden appears. It's an interesting, like, little experience and stuff. The novelty, but it will get old after a while, but it's great every once in a while if you just go back and play it. Also, talk about great games on handhelds, you can't go wrong with Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, which is a solid overall game. Now, personally, though, there's a lot of people who consider this game like a far lesser version of the original GameCube game. Personally, I think it really is its own story and has its own feel and everything, especially with the different art style. Dark Moon is good. I mean, yeah, the original GameCube is better, but still, I personally like Dark Moon more than Luigi's Mansion 3. But that's my personal opinion. Also, you want a good, solid party game? You can't go wrong with Super Mario, or rather, Super Smash Bros. For the 3DS. This is awesome. Love the experience, and I'm glad I have all the DLC downloaded onto my 3DS. Since now you can't buy anything on the eShop anymore, which sucks. Still, it's great, and the fact you can play and kick butt with Cloud makes it all the better. But with that said, definitely this is one of my preferred ways to play a Smash game. It's actually quite fun playing it on the 3DS. It's a must-own, in my opinion, for any Nintendo fan. Especially if you're a big fan of, like, Nintendo handhelds, this is definitely a must-play. Also, easily one of the best early or launch titles for the 3DS is Super Street Fighter 4 3D Edition, which does have an interesting mode and everything. Now, as a, of course, obvious longtime fanboy of the Street Fighter franchise, this is surprisingly a great experience. It's even good, like for newcomers, the way it implements special touch play. It makes it way too easy to play the game like that, but, I mean, if you're never really played a Street Fighter game before, this is actually a good way to start off and get the hang of it. And it plays surprisingly well for being a handheld port. Also, mention quickly, Pokemon Ultra Moon, which I said, of course, I haven't actually played this yet. I do want to get around to actually playing the game and trying it out. So we'll see how it actually ends up for me. Next up, we are going with a less well-known title, and probably one of the harder to find games actually for the 3DS, or at least for a reasonable price range, Monster Hunter Stories, which of course got a sequel released for the Switch. Basically, it's like a Pokemon version of Monster Hunter. Is the best way to put it, though. It also has a full single-player like story and everything, which is one of the things that makes this game very distinctively different from any other Monster Hunter game. But at the same time, that's one of the things I actually genuinely like about this game. And I think more people should actually give stories a shot if they have the opportunity to. Now also, while we're at it, of course, can't go wrong if you're looking for a superb, great fighting game experience on the 3DS. You can't go wrong with Dead or Alive Dimensions, which nicely knits together, surprisingly, the stories of Dead or Alive 1, 2, 3, and 4 all together, which amazes me. And it has, basically, you can unlock and play with all the characters, even all of the bosses are playable in this, which it's a lot of fun having boss battles. It even has a special stage in this game that is actually dedicated to, believe it or not, Metroid. Even has Ripley flying around in the background of the stage, which makes it awesome. But seriously, if you've never played Dead or Alive Dimensions, give it a shot, but just know this is one of the games that has been going up in recent time. So just be aware of that. Also, if you want, of course, another great experience, you can't go wrong, Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance, or Kingdom Hearts 3D. As I have personally played the 3D version of this game, I have probably played this and beat it 6 or 7 times. So yeah, needless to say, it is one of my favorite Kingdom Hearts games. It's probably my 3rd favorite Kingdom Hearts game right now. I'd put just barely Kingdom Hearts 3 in 4th place. But with that said, yeah, the flow motion is one of the things that really sells it. I love the 3D effect on this game as well. Now, looking at quickly 2 new 3DS games. The first of which is Xenoblade Chronicles, which of course originally released on the Wii, and I actually think this is a surprisingly solid port, and it actually plays and looks really good for being on the 3DS. I'm actually quite impressed. This is actually, I haven't played the Switch version for me though. Between trying it on the Wii and this, I personally prefer this to the Wii version. Just my own personal preference though. And the same thing goes, of course, also for Minecraft new Nintendo 3DS edition. But yeah, the 3DS edition of this is actually quite cool, and also it's awesome. It includes like special 7 like packs included in this, which is also awesome. And cool, seeing this with the 3D effect is also pretty cool. But if you ever get a chance to actually try this on the 3DS, actually give it a shot. It's actually quite fun. Now on to the last 3. Needs no introduction, the last 3 of course, Zelda games. First up we have, of course, The Legend of Zelda, A Link Between Worlds, which implies really cool, new at the time gameplay mechanics and stuff to the game, and it really is a love letter to the old school Zelda games from the past, and I love the more top-down, like, viewpoint, which you would get also in, like, the Link's Awakening remake. But for me, this is easily in my top 10 favorite Zelda games of all time. Also, you can't go wrong with the remastered versions for The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, which is the music in the background in the video, is from Ocarina of Time. And of course, I think the criminally underrated Majora's Mask. Now, between the two, which is the better, I think, experience on the 3DS? Yes, this is actually pretty solid overall, and I prefer the 3DS version of this over the N64, but there's some at the same time so nostalgic about playing this on the N64, as I still have it on my N64, which is awesome. Now, for me, I never actually played Majora's Mask on the N64. I played it in that GameCube-like collection thing. Not the greatest port, definitely some issues with that port of the game. Personally, I think this is the definitive way to play Majora's Mask. I mean, I'd say also, honestly, this is good as well way to play the game if you're really wanting. But for me, if you want a definitive way to play Majora's Mask, play the 3DS edition. But with that said, I'll see y'all next time. Same YouTube time, same YouTube channel, and stay safe out there in YouTube land.